Hey, how's it going? So I was watching a channel by the name of Faith Gamer, and the guy made a video called "The Ramblings of a Distraught Gen Z Male," and this is kind of a response video that is the response that might help people who are in his position, because my life is by no means perfect, but I have bounced back from quite a bit from a lot of the feelings that I've realized, not just myself, but a lot of Gen Z men and a lot of millennial men and a lot of younger generations coming up are feeling. And you know what? When I hear all this, a little bit of my resentment, which I do suffer from, dies because I realize I'm not alone. Now, I want to get into real quick where this resentment comes from. So let me be honest. I know that there's a big rise in men's content, men's help content, and a lot of it I feel like is very disingenuous. When you see them here, buy this $50 kit that's going to help change you into the man that you want to be. Where sometimes, although I love self-improvement, I feel like it's a little monetized now that there's a lot of these lost and confused men. But even before it was made apparent that I'm not the only person who has these thoughts or has these feelings about society, nepotism, shallowness, things like that, it kind of went a little bit deeper for me. Because when I grew up as a kid, I used to be a very happy-go-lucky thing, and I grew up in a stable family, a kind of good family. We had our dysfunctions, but for the most part, my dad was working because he wanted to provide the best life possible for us, and I think my mom tried, but she had her own sets of things going on that usually I don't want to get too into because it's her business, but I just realized she tried her best, and you realize that as human beings, a lot of us aren't equipped for a lot of things or to hold us to a different standard. Now, maybe sometimes I was thrown off by how many times she would kind of excuse herself because of her emotional shortcomings, but I think that's because I've always tried to push through these obstacles of I never had this or I never had that. Because just like everybody else, I had voids in my life. A lot of people have a lot more voids than you would like to admit. But I do like to count my blessings, but not everything was always perfect. Because when I was a kid, I would always just go out of my way to be the best friend to people who were friends to me. Now, when I call someone my friend or my brother or my teammate, I mean it, because they have gained a special place in my heart, in my mind, in everything, basically. So I had a lot of really good friends in elementary school, but I was yanked out of a really good elementary school for basically no reason and put into another school where I lost contact with a lot of friends. And then I went through middle school where I started packing on weight as a kid, and I got picked on a lot for being overweight. And by the time I got to ninth grade, I was just hoping high school would be better, because in sixth grade, I had stuck up for a friend who was getting picked on, and then 3 weeks later, he joined those kids, and then I got 3 years of just a nonstop barrage from some kid who I reached out a helping hand to. And even that kid came up to me when we were like in our 20s and tried being my friend again, and I said, look, I know it was a long time ago, but I understand how you operate. And you left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't hold any sort of hatred towards you, but I'm good. But having said that, I got into high school where I had met up with a friend of mine from elementary school who had also turned his back on me. And I would always try going to my parents for help. Now, meanwhile, my mom had some stuff going on. My dad was always working, and my older brother was, busy getting into too much trouble as it was. So as a kid, I didn't really have very many people to turn to. Now, I had a home to go home to, but usually I didn't really have anyone to talk to in that home. So the Nintendo became my best friend. The Xbox became my best friend. All my friends were basically online at the time. But it got so bad to the point where I started starving myself and all this, because I didn't realize my older brother had a rival who had a younger brother who just wanted to keep the generational trauma going with me. And it was actually a very hard thing. So I had the entire school coming after me for absolutely no reason. And I just wanted to find a reason to improve. So I had starved myself, hopped on cardio machines, didn't want to eat anything. And in about a month's time, I was reduced to basically skin, bones, and just a fear of eating. Now, why was that? It's because usually my family wasn't there to guide me. They would always outsource it to someone else who was basically just someone who was collecting a paycheck. They didn't really take time to make sure I was doing the right thing. So I ended up taking matters into my own hands. A young kid who didn't really know anything about anything, and I ended up just becoming anorexic, and it was a cry out to all this stress, all this abandonment I was dealing with, all this lack of people being there for me. So, and then my mom took me to a therapist where I was misdiagnosed with a mental illness that I never had. I was just a kid who was suffering from natural human responses to being traumatized. So, what I'm getting at is I know what it's like to have human experiences that are devalued, because once I realized that the mental illness I was diagnosed with didn't exist, and I was taking medication that was making my attention span go away, my social cohesion go away, and no one could really see the underlying causes. So I missed out on relationships, opportunities, all this. My life basically took a tailspin, and it also left me up to even more harassment once people realized I was disabled, which showed me a whole nother darker view of society, because there would be normal everyday people in this society that's supposed to be all good and all knowing that would prey on people who were disabled or who were convinced and told repeatedly that they were defective and disabled. So I grew up with a very poor self-image of myself. I grew up with a lot of things. Every time I begged for guidance, I was like, here, just take this pill, just take this, take that. It was very dismissive, and it caused me a world of pain that spiraled for nearly a decade over. All while this happened, I'm still helping people who are my friends who kept abandoning me. But every time I felt like I had a grievance, I just remember that I was defective. This emotion I'm feeling isn't real. So there was years of repressed abandonment, betrayal that kind of just, was waiting to be reawakened at a specific time in my life. But here I was scared, alone, and all this stuff, and it could have ended super bad. Knowing these news stories you see, especially when people are making money polls that you're going to be the next person to commit one of the atrocities I'm going to not say on line for the censorship and use purposes. But I used to have people spreading rumors that I was going to be the next person to do that. So it was almost like people knew the underlying causes. They just didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to sit back and watch the mayhem, which was just an even 10,000 times worse way of handling these things. Teachers didn't help me. No teachers really reached out. I don't think any teachers really could have, because the older I get, the more I realize teachers are just human beings like the rest of us. Like, we like to put them up on this protection pedestal, but they're just people who are there doing a job just so they can make a living and go home to their family. Like, we put too much faith in these institutions, my guy. But I'm just saying I know this because I know what it's like to be told that your experiences aren't valuable, and you grow up with a really poor baseline on how you allow other people to treat you. It's not a good thing. And eventually it just takes one or two people who actually reach out and care about you and show you what is going on to really make you realize just how poorly you've been treated. And like I'm saying, with that came a lot of realization to the gaslighting, which caused some more problems down the line that I eventually had to come over. Rage issues like you wouldn't believe, gaslighting to the max. I was not a happy person. And out of the entire storm of just narcissistic people in a narcissistic society that I had to suffer because of, and because of the negligence of, those few people who showed me, no, you're valuable. What you do has merit. I actually started valuing myself midway through my 20s. And I honestly was prepared to fight my way out of this corner that I had been led into. And normally I hate to play the victim card because, well, let's just say a lot of this stuff was repressed. And as a kid, you need guidance. You need role models because that's going to shape your entire life experience. But I've been going through these feelings of anger, confusion, hatred, stuff like that, justified since before the red pill even became a thing. And now that I see a lot of other people, I don't use it as a oh, you think you had it bad kind of thing. I use it as a I know what it's like, you know what it's like. Let's come back and let's be let's be a team, because I feel like we could really build ourselves off of these traumas and off of these poor experiences and off of all these things, because obviously it's very clear that a lot of men are lost, confused. They don't feel like society values them or their input, doesn't want to validate their negative emotions, their negative grievances, their heartaches, etc. And obviously this guy has a lot of, doubt. And you know what? Even with the amount of stride I had made to morph myself into a better human being today, I still have doubts on where the future is going to head, on what's going to be around 5, 10 or years from now. What out of my control thing can make this whole, like you said, house of cards come crumbling down, because even worldwide, not just for Western men, things are very shaky and just questionable altogether. So I think we really need some people who have their heart in the right place for their voices to be heard. And although I noticed in this kid's video, he is basically reaching out and saying that he's confused. He knows he should be grateful for more. And you know what? That's good, because you understand your shortcomings. I don't even think it's a shortcoming. I think you have reasons to be doubtful of things. You have a lot of reasons to, be realistic about it. I don't think you're being pessimistic at all, because there's a difference between realism and pessimism. Pessimism is thinking it's all bad. Realism is acknowledging the bad and the good in the same time, and it seems like that's what this guy is doing, along with other people who share his mindset. And I'm not here to predict 5, 10, 20 years from now, because really, I don't know. I wish I did. I wish I knew that things were going to be stable 5 or 10 years from now, especially when you try to explain this to older audiences. It's foreign to them. They are used to having a society that's stable, that has roots. A lot of us are kind of starting to see that we don't really have that much anymore. And although I can't guarantee a whole lot, what actually got me out of my funk, and this is what my solution was, it might not be yours, but take from it what you will, is when I started training to fight. I started getting into MMA, and even then, I think I've made videos of this on the past on how I switched jiu-jitsu gyms because of all the politics and all of the nepotism that was going on and all the lip service that I was getting. And I was actually watching my mentor himself go from being a really cool guy to hang around to being so caught up in the political sphere that he really let it be known that he didn't care if he wasn't doing his job, because someone on Twitter called him something, and he deserves the right to take it out on everybody, right? But as I learned how to fight, I was more in tune on how to have a goal in life. And what did that get me? That got me down a path of learning about computers, learning about blue-collar work. I've taken on a lot of apprenticeships. I went to trade school for welding, and that spiraled into frame carpentry, plumbing, electrician work, and everything, because a lot of these blue-collar guys really tended to know a thing or two about, and you really tend to realize that, yeah, there are some really solid places to learn and have goals from it. And I think that's the number one thing for a lot of these Gen Zers is they need goals. They need a straight-up goal, and not necessarily just YouTube, although everyone should take a crack at YouTube. Why not? I know that everyone wants to do it. I know that everyone wants to have these things, right? But so few people blow up into Jake Paul and everything like that, that you want to have a YouTube goal and then you want to have real-life things. Like, do you want to learn how to become a master welder? Do you want to learn how to be a blacksmith? Do you want to, learn a trade? Because one of the big things is we're always going to need handmade materials, and then we're always going to need digital stuff. That's why I like going to cybersecurity school. I mean, I passed my Security Plus on my first try. I've been taking IT exams. I've been studying for those. It keeps my mind busy. It keeps my mind preoccupied. It fills my mind with something that I feel like is useful, and gets a lot of this despair that I feel like a lot of the men need to get out of their mind. And I can't guarantee that having a goal is going to bring you a happy ending or an ultimate thing, or, like a wife and kids, right? But what I can say is living this lifestyle of at least forcing the drive out of me and trying to understand that there are people out there who are meant to guide me. Not necessarily the ones I had counted on from my birth, but there are people out there that are there to guide me. If you look hard enough, you will find one of those people. Because when I see guys like Faith Gamer go on these rambles, it kind of just shows me that, no, I'm not alone, and I'm not the only person seeing a completely whacked out society that has fallen victim to its own habits. But also, there is obviously a fair mourning point. I remember when I learned that I wasn't a crazy person, and a lot of my grievances of the betrayals I've experienced in my life were highly valid. I went through a long, rageful, resentful phase where I was just not a happy person, because all I could think about from the day I woke up to when I went to sleep was, how could the world betray me so much? And you have to acknowledge those negative feelings before you can get them out, right? Before you can, make sure that they're not theirs, you have to let it pass through you. Because denying it and just quote unquote moving on, I feel like is a very toxic way that if anyone tells you to just get over it, they've never had a struggle like that in their entire life. But to Faithful Gamer and to a lot of the people like him is, if you reach out and you have goals or you try to find something, just start. It might not be the goal you set out, but I feel like, you're a Christian, so I'm going to say, when you reach out for answers, I feel like, and you show that you're putting in an effort to try and do better. I'm not saying you're not. I'm not saying you haven't started. I don't really know you as a person, but what I am going off is just your one video that I watched, and I see a lot of men who are in this position, and I've seen it 1,000 times, and I feel like at least I'm not this savior who has all of the answers. I'm just showing what helped me go to being what I feel like is a functioning human in a dystopian society who could have ended up way worse than he actually did. That you should always try to be learning. You should always try to be better yourself. Not to lure in a woman or have a kid, but to center yourself and be your own center of your own universe. Because we live in such a narcissistic society nowadays that everyone's already looking out for themselves. You might as well join the mix, dude. And yes, trust me, I understand. I know that there's people out there who will see your drive, see your desire to be something honorable, be something good, be a positive force in this world, and they will try to tear you down. There are people out there that are like that, especially when I was in trades. I had some coworkers who didn't even want to train me because they just wanted to trip me up and make me doubt myself, because they saw that I had ambition behind what they could ever have, and all those people can do is suck you down with them. Those people are there. Just like the Bible says, do not cast pearls before swine, because there are people who are so morally far gone that they just serve as a black hole force in this world. And that is what I honestly firmly believe. I try not to use Christianity as my main front, but there's a lot of scripture that I could use to apply when it comes to that stuff. There are a lot of people out there who are not going to make it. Like you said, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And spiritually, you do want to be a winner, because I feel spiritually, if you're a winner in this life, you will be at least somewhat successful and at least happy in your own skin. And your path is definitely not going to be my path per se, because honestly, everyone walks a different one. But I'm just trying to see if anything from this speech can ring out to you or anyone who's going out of something or relating to what he's saying. Sorry, I'm tripping up my words because I've just been going on this video, because I'm going off of that spark in my chest that is saying this is a message that if it reaches anybody, I'm happy I could help 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 people who come across this video and a big list of videos that could potentially get buried. But I'm going to acknowledge you, and I'm going to just conclude because I'm running out of time. Acknowledge the bad, but don't become a victim to the black pill. Don't become a victim to the black holes all around you. And try your best to look. It's not going to happen overnight, I guarantee that. But just continue to search. And I really do wish you the best. To a lot of these Gen Z guys who are struggling or who resonated with this ramble, I hope you got something from it. Because just know you're not alone. That's the one thing I can guarantee. You guys are not alone, and you guys should have each other's backs, because in this time, community is everything. Social media has absolutely robbed us of our community. In fact, honestly, in a sense, we've robbed ourselves of this community, because we chose to idolize influencers for years on end, and look what it has gotten us. Now, we could always, I'm not saying you're the ones who did it, You know who you are, but it's not too late to turn back, be communal, love one another, build each other up, and realize, hey, we're not alone. We're all in this together. So let's make life better for all of us. Peace out.